To understand what people are talking about when they talk about a marriage penalty, let's actually calculate the taxes for a bunch of different couples. And we're going to calculate it as a married couple and then also figure out what the taxes they would have had to pay if they never got married and they filed as individuals. So first have couple A, they each make $100,000. So if you just have an individual who makes $100,000, let's think about how much they would pay in taxes, and then we can double it because they have two of them making $100,000. So on the first, from 0 to 8,925, they're going to pay 10%, round that to $893. On the next increment up to 36,250, they're going to pay 4,099. So plus 4,099. On the increment from 36,250 to 87,850, they're going to pay 25% or 12,900 plus 12,900. And then they're going to pay 28% on the increment above 87,850 and below 100,000. So 100,000, 1, 2, 3, minus 87,850 gets us to 21,294. Now this is just one person making 100,000, but now let's combine it. Let's say what would their combined taxes have been if they never got married. So times 2 gets us to 42,588. So 42,588. Now let's calculate it if they actually got married and they file jointly as a married couple. And as well, and they actually don't, once they get married, they actually no longer have the option of filing as an individual. They now would either have to married filing jointly or do married filing separately, which also does not give you this bracket right over here. So we really are comparing what happens when you are completely single, not married, to when you are married. So when you're married, we're going to take their combined income of $200K. The first 17,850 is at 10%, so that's 1,785. Next increment is 8,198 plus 8,198. Plus the next increment, we still haven't gotten to the 200,000 yet, is 18,475 plus 18,475 plus 28% of the increment below 200,000 and above 146,400. So 200, 1, 2, 3, minus 146,400 gets us to 43,466. 43,466. So notice, by getting married, they now had to use this schedule if they're going to file jointly, and they pay more in taxes. So this right here is what people consider to be the marriage penalty. And just to emphasize, you might say, hey, why don't they just file as an individual? Well, this tax bracket is no longer, or these brackets are no longer available to them if they are married. If they don't want to file jointly, they could do married filing separately, but you're still going to get the same outcome right over here. So in this case, for this couple, which is they're both making an equal amount and a fairly high income, you do have a marriage penalty. They are paying almost $1,000 more in taxes. But let's think about a few other scenarios. Let's take couple B into consideration. So if we do them separately, so let's first take the individual who's making $180,000. So in the first, they're going to pay $893 on that first bucket, then $4,099 on the bucket after that. That takes us up to $36,250, then $12,900 plus $12,900. Then they're going to pay 28% on the increment above $87,850. So they make $180,000. This is who we're talking about. So 180, 1, 2, 3, minus $87,850 gets us to, and I use this all the way up because this goes all the way to 183,000. So it was, if this was 184,000, we would have to think about the next bracket, but it's not. So then we get our answer. So this is just the person making 180,000. So to that, we're going to add the taxes that the person making 20,000 has to pay. So they're going to pay 10% on this first bracket right over here. So that's $893. $893. Then they're going to pay 15%. Then they're going to pay 15% on the increment, above 8,925. So they make 20,000. So 20, 1, 2, 3 minus 8,925 gets us to, did I do that right? Yeah, that looks right. Gets us to their total taxes, if we just round it, 46,248. 40, let me do that in white. 46,248. Let me make sure I wrote that down. 46,248 if we round down. Now, if they file jointly, so this is the situation where they never get married and they both can file individual, non-married, then if you were to add up their taxes, it's 46,248. Now, once they get married and they file jointly, their combined income is the same as couple A, so they're going to pay 43,466. They're going to pay the same thing right over here. And notice, now they actually got a marriage benefit. So this right over here was actually a marriage benefit. And the reason why it came out as a marriage benefit is now you had a huge disparity in incomes right over here. Most of the income was coming from this individual right over here. And by getting married, now this individual could use the married schedule, which at least in the first few brackets increases at half the rate over here. Notice this first bracket is up to 0 to 8,925. This is 0 to 17,850. So you have the brackets moving up not as fast, and this was most of the income, and so you actually get a benefit by getting married. Now I'll leave it as an exercise to you what happens in couple C. In couple C, they both have the same income, but their income is lower than what you saw in couple A. And you notice this bracket right over here, 17,850 is exactly double 8,925. 72,500 is exactly double 36,250. But then 146,400 is not double this right over here. And so this is where you start seeing, for a scenario like couple A, where you start seeing the marriage penalty only for couple A. Notice there was a marriage benefit for couple B, where you start seeing the marriage penalty kick in. What you'll see for couple C, because as a couple they fall into this, that last increment still falls into this category right over here, it's going to be neutral whether they get married or not. And I just want to emphasize, you might be saying, well, wait, why doesn't anyone just, married filing separately, which is an option. You can do married filing separately, but it is not this tax bracket, these brackets right over here. Married filing separately it has a very similar effect as married filing jointly. So in the case of couple A, you would still have the marriage penalty.